Well, of course, that's the situation in the Western Cape. While KwaZulu-Natal is battling wildfires, the Western Cape declaring a state of disaster after the intense flooding there. Colin Deiner is the Disaster Management Chief in the Western Cape. Colin, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. From what I understand, there's still one or two areas that may be cut off from other areas. Are you able to get food and resources to those areas? Are some areas still cut off this afternoon?
Good afternoon, Stephen, and to your viewers. So the areas that we still have concerns is up in the Cedarburg district, or in the Cedarburg municipality, in that area. So we have had some problems there. We've had problems specifically around the Clan William area, and then into Wuppertal and to Citrusdal. And then there's a couple of very, isolated areas in the central Karoo around Langsburg and further south towards the Breda Valley. So we have done quite a couple of operations over the weekend. Our emergency medical services helicopter has flown in supplies, has also moved people out. We've worked with SARSA, the off-road rescue unit. They've been able to access into Clan William today. And so we're using Clan William as the base to get to these other places. Although I must say our infrastructure department is also doing quite a lot of work, and we didn't have much rain today. Tomorrow, only 5 to 6 millimeters is predicted. So we're quite happy that we'll probably get in there tomorrow and be able to, finally reach everybody, and people will be able to move more freely.
Are the roads also still blocked? Are there some problems? I mean, you've been very worried about some rivers and dams as well.
Yeah, we have roads in those areas. So there has been some, the road that links Citrusdal to the N7 has been quite severely damaged. So that's a problem. But it was the side of the road, but is being repaired. And as I mentioned, I think access will be granted tomorrow. We had quite a bit on the N1 that was damaged. We had the N2, although that wasn't closed. A very big part of it around Hoek was flooded. And then there are a number of roads, across the province, more secondary roads that are still closed, and they need repair. We need to wait for the water levels to drop before our people can do anything about that.
This has now been declared a state of disaster. Does that help you get resources you need from provincial, from national government, I presume?
Well, Stephen, what it does is it gives our provincial executive the authority to release funds under emergency funding, which otherwise would not have been possible. And it allows us also to take whatever extraordinary measures we require. But I just want to mention that we don't wait for a state of disaster to start doing that. This gives it the legal kind of power that it requires, and gives the Premier the legal authority he requires. But we treat every incident like this. We assess what the impact's going to be, and we treat it as a disaster. So, there sometimes seems to be the impression that we have to wait for a declaration before we can actually get something done, and that's not a fact.
Okay. So, I mean, there's many things that need to happen now, and there are probably various phases to this. You've been in the emergency phase and maybe still for the areas that are cut off for some time. I presume there's a sort of rebuilding phase that comes after that.
Yes, so we've been through what we call the acute phase or emergency phase, and that has been just reaching people, providing humanitarian assistance. And we were just informed today that we've had 135 humanitarian interventions. In other words, that's been people that have received, food or blankets or packs or whatever. So that's still very much on the go, because we still have people that are not able to return to their homes. And what we will now start doing the moment that we are finished, and this will start as soon as, not tomorrow, but the day after, we will start with assessments. So we're now going to assess damage to roads. We're going to assess damage to agriculture, to our health facilities, to our education facilities, to municipal infrastructure. And then we'll start looking at what that is all going to cost to repair. We then have to first look at our own budgets, and then we have to do that reprioritization that the disaster declaration allows us to do. And once that is done, we still require funding, we will then go to National Treasury, requesting additional funding.
And Colin, I mean, the other problem, of course, is that this has been the most intense rain. I know a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, people were saying in the last 20 years, I've seen some indications in some places, it may in fact be the last 50 years, hard to know, of course. The question now is, are you and your officials unfortunately going to be busier? In other words, could we find that there's going to be more incidents of rain like this in the future? In other words, planning for future floods, things that could still now happen as the climate does seem to change.
Yes, absolutely, Stephen. I think just for this week, the weather report this morning, the forecast was actually not too bad. So we're expecting 5 to 6 tomorrow, 25 on Wednesday, but then only 15 to 25 on Thursday. So it's not as severe. It's what they call a weak cold front coming through. But although it is a water-on-water incident, so, we still need to make sure that we have our teams out there and monitoring. But yes, you're right. I can recall being in this province in disaster management for 15 years. And in the last year, if you had to take it from June last year, we've actually had 5 major flooding incidents, where in the past we'd possibly have 1 in every 2 years. So we're seeing more and more of this. There's definitely a lot more that needs to be done around infrastructure protection, and there's a lot more that needs to be done around awareness where people build their homes, where people settle.
Colin, within all of this, and we've been talking about the damage largely to property, from what I can see, very few reports of loss of human life or, in fact, anyone being hurt. I want to say, as difficult as it's been, and there'll be long-term consequences for people, is there a bit of a silver lining here?
Yeah, absolutely. We go on the assumption that we don't want to lose any lives. We have 1 confirmed drowning that happened in Cape Town. There's another one that we're still just working on confirming whether it was related or not. I think what was the thing that helped us the most there was the early warning. So weather services gave us an early warning. A lot of preparation was done. And I think that really helped. Closing the schools doesn't mean that it's just the schools that are protected. It means people driving on roads which can be dangerous. It means highways and roads are open for emergency services to move. There's so much benefit in making decisions like that. And then creating awareness along the line is very important. We try and focus that awareness to people in areas that are going to be of high risk. And I think that has really been the big benefit in having the really low injury and death rate that we've had.
Colin Deiner, thanks very much indeed, Head of Disaster Management in the Western Cape.